Now, another very different musical story. Peenemünde in northern Germany is best known as the site of a key Nazi weapons development installation during the Second World War. Now, 20 years ago, its disused power plant was put to new use as a concert hall, which hosts the Usedom Music Festival. This year, they brought in the New York Philharmonic to play a program with some significant Jewish connections, and our senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim went there to file this report.
We're here in Usedom, Germany, along the coastline of the Baltic Sea, standing in the turbine hall of what was the Peenemünde power plant, which once served as a secret army research center from which the Nazis developed and launched V-1 and V-2 rockets to deadly effect during World War II. 20 years ago, the Germans decided to take this evil piece of history and turn it into something beautiful, a concert hall, from which the Usedom Music Festival now hosts their annual event. Festival organizers have been trying for a decade now to get the New York Philharmonic to headline this event, and they finally got their wish this weekend. Of course, for any Jewish person playing in an environment like this, emotions are something to take into consideration. But for a particular member of the New York Philharmonic playing in their first violin section, Yulia Ziskel, well, she's a Jewish refugee herself from St. Petersburg. We asked her how her life experiences impact her emotions as she takes the stage here this weekend.
It got me thinking a lot. You know, back when I visited on a pre-tour in October, you know, it kind of stirred a lot of emotions, and I felt this strange energy of this place, you know, just as soon as we passed the gate. Now, in these times, it probably stirs double, because I'm here kind of thinking, could the history repeat itself? It's a very scary times in that respect for me.
Perhaps the most recognizable American baritone today, Thomas Hampson, is performing as a featured soloist with the Philharmonic this weekend. Hampson is singing selected works of Gustav Mahler, the Jewish Austro-Bohemian composer who did his best to hide his own Jewish roots. Nevertheless, Mahler's work was later banned by the Nazis.
Singing Mahler's music, you're never very far from so many personal thoughts and reflections and disappointments in human nature. I think that's what Mahler's inviting us very often to contemplate when they hear his songs. Yes, you can talk about him being an outsider, you can talk about him feeling disenfranchised in places or in ways, but all of his songs, he's not a political person, he's a personal person, and he is always demanding of us to question ourselves why we do what we do.
One of the most recognizable violinists in the world today is Anne-Sophie Mutter. She's here this weekend as a featured soloist with the Philharmonic as well. Mutter's first teacher was a Jew who had to hide her faith during the Nazi era. Mutter would later go on to marry Andrei Previn, the famed Jewish-German composer who had to flee the Holocaust along with his family, finding refuge in the United States. Before Previn and Mutter were married, Previn wrote a piece of music, a love letter of sorts, named after Anne-Sophie Mutter. She's playing that piece here this weekend in tribute of her late husband, a survivor of the Holocaust.
He never held a grudge against Germany or German culture. The opposite was the case. I don't know anyone else who did not live in Germany his whole life, who had so much love for and knowledge about German literature, for example. He knew Else Lasker-Schüler. He also performed her poetry. He was a great lover of Böll, of course. Mann, he loved Otto Dix. Things which are not mainstream. His German was beautiful, he cultivated it. But he was a proud American after all. And I think that both has a home in his violin concert. The happiness about the chance to live in America, a life for music, an international life. But also the early and persistent love for Germany, which maybe reached its peak in our marriage, even though it was short. And of course, in the violin concert.
Well, this concert hall, as it is now, is filling up as the New York Philharmonic prepares to play their final performance of the weekend here. Yes, they have turned this ugly piece of history into something filled with peace and hope. Reporting from the Usedom Music Festival in Usedom, Germany, Mike Wagenheim, I-24 News.
Now that looks like a great event.